Hello, and welcome to another Checkmarks Whiteboard session. Today I'm going to be talking about open source software and some of the complexities that come as a result of open, collaborative, community-driven development. For the purposes of this conversation, we will assume that you have a familiarity and an understanding of the premise of open source development. So, we'll begin today by discussing Project A. Project A has an existing timeline over which there will be various development activities and releases. Development activity can manifest itself as branches or forks, and in this branch, there will be some development activity happening in parallel to the lifeline of that master branch of Project A. This development activity could be testing, feature additions, minor, major additions, bug fixes, things like that. These changes get incorporated back into the master branch of Project A. This can be done in a few different ways, and we will discuss those options that are available to you in the future, as they have different implications on both the project and the project history. This type of activity continues to happen throughout the lifeline of the project. Sometimes you will see branches off of branches. Sometimes you will see occurrences like this. And again, changes will continue to persist on down the line. And sometimes you will see branches or forks that do not necessarily get incorporated back into the master project. An example of this is LibreOffice. LibreOffice, an open source collaborative productivity suite, began as a fork off of OpenOffice. Now, there are instances in which organizations, vendors, work groups may want to copy and distribute Project A as well. This is called a distribution, or a distro. So here we have distro 1 and distro 2. Here we see that Project A, in this example, is a copy of Project A from the beginning. It is possible to create a different distro of a project of a different project version. In our example, we'll keep it simple, and we'll start with a direct copy from the beginning of Project A. And of course, as you discussed above, there's various development activity that takes place throughout the course of this project, but it does not need to necessarily mimic the development activity that we see up above. And this introduces some potential challenges, some potential risks. As time goes on, and the development activity and evolution of Project A from two different distros takes place, you get what is called technical debt, a greater deviation between Project A, although the same in title, but available from two different distributions. So, we can catalog these challenges in three areas. The first area is perhaps the most familiar to people. We will call this security. When we discuss security, you can think of these as open source vulnerabilities. In this example, perhaps there's a vulnerability that starts right at the beginning of Project A and introduced from the beginning, and we see this in both distros. Perhaps development activity here introduces a vulnerability which then gets brought back up into the master project, and perhaps down here there's a vulnerability that is introduced and then gets brought down into later activity in the project. The second area of concern is what we will call licensing or attribution. Again, a core aspect of open source software is attribution to the creators in various ways. And the last is what we will call, for the purposes here, maintenance or maintenance costs. The idea here is that part of open source software is the collaborative activity and development driven by the open source community. As we see here, we have two different communities potentially driving the development of two different distributions of the same project. And say, for example, community activity wanes, or perhaps you're operating with an older version of a product, and so on. Technical debt contributes to maintenance cost, and as community activity wanes, you potentially take on additional maintenance costs for the project. We will discuss these challenges in greater depth in future videos, but for now, thank you very much for joining me, and have a great day.